Hello, welcome to even more yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have so enjoyed making these videos for you all, and yet I'm also very much looking forward to the moment when we can all be practicing in person again, and I don't have to imagine that I'm just speaking to a room full of people. It's not exactly uh, maybe not the best for my mental health, but it's all good. That's why we do yoga, right? Okay, I don't know. I might edit that part out later. Um, I have implements in front of me today. I have a broomstick where I've removed the broom, actually the sweeping part from the end. I also have a ball. What you're going to need is something hard. So these are two great examples. If you have a foam roller, you could use a foam roller. If you have a Theragun, you could just use your Theragun for the first little while. But we've been doing a lot of glute strengthening stuff lately, so I thought we would get a little bit into release for the glutes because when those guys get tight, ooh boy, some weird stuff can happen, right? And it's not just the glutes; it's like the whole um, butt cheek region, a little bit outer hip as well. Particularly, right, if you have super tight area or piriformis, it can cause sciatica, right? And that's not a fun thing to deal with. So there we go. We're gonna mobilize, we're gonna stretch the glutes. We'll do a little bit of the rest of the body too, because we always do. And yeah, I think that's gonna fill half an hour pretty easily. So let's start lying down on your back if you're comfortable there. Don't worry about the other tools of distraction for the moment. Depending on how your day has been so far, you might need some time to get wiggled out. Okay, I guess I do need to roll my dowel away so I have time. And depending on how your body feels, maybe you have your knees bent, maybe you have your legs straight. If you have your knees bent like me, you might want to take your feet wider than hip width apart, maybe even mat width apart, and allow your knees and thighs to hang in toward each other. It gives you a little bit more ease here you know, without feeling like you have to control the legs from flopping out or in. Maybe take a little loop of your shoulder blades toward each other on your back so the chest and the heart can open a little bit more. And then for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And continue breathing however you need to, whether it's in and out through your nose or your mouth. Notice how your breath is flowing. Maybe there are some sticky or choppy spots along the way. Right? If so, you could gently try to lengthen through those parts of the breath just to smooth it out a little bit more. And alternatively, maybe your breath feels really open and spacious. In each case, acknowledge that for whatever it's worth today. And your mind might start to wander. When you notice that happening, gently bring your focus back to your breath. It can help calm the wobbles and shakes. And allow the mind to settle back on the breath. Last few breaths here. And gently start to bring a little bit of movement back to your body. Whatever way feels best for you to wake up. Could be wiggle of the fingertips or your toes or a big sort of yawning stretch. Maybe you interlace your fingers and press your palms back behind you overhead. You could play with pointing your toes or flexing them. And then start to draw your knees in toward your belly, your chest, and take a little rock from side to side. Your thighs could be together, your legs could be wide, doesn't really matter, whatever feels best for you here. And then start to take circles through with the legs in the hip sockets. So your thighs could stay connected to each other, or they could separate. And, if you always do the circles the same way, maybe try them out a different way. So I'm going to keep my thighs connected this time. And then make sure that you do the circles in both directions, right? Just to balance out that neuromuscular pattern. And then come back to center. Keep your knees bent, bring your feet to the floor. So about hip width apart, parallel-ish, and close enough into your bum that you can tickle your heels with your fingertips, right? So I've done bridge pose millions of times, maybe, and I always check the positioning every single time. So go ahead and check if you haven't. And then wrap your shoulder blades toward each other on your back. And on your inhale, start to lift your pelvis and spine up and away from the floor. And exhale, slowly lower back down. So a few more of these. Inhale to lift. Exhale to lower. You might lift up with a tuck of the tailbone, right? Kind of like one vertebra at a time, and then lower down that way. Or you might lift up kind of like a plank with the spine in extension, and then lower down that way so the bum probably hits before the low back. You can play with it. Maybe you do the flexion, maybe you do the extension. If none of this makes sense, don't worry about it. Just keep lifting up and lowering down. Last two here. And then pause at the bottom. Next time you come down, you could rest in stillness or take a little wiggle, whatever feels best for you. If you move your feet, make sure that you now set them back up in their right place. And then on your inhale, lift up into your bridge. Now, some of you might walk your feet forward a little bit here and come onto the heels. And then maybe you think of pressing the heels into the floor even more to lift the hips up a bit higher. So this is a bit more of like a fitness variation of bridge. It's really going to start to work your hamstrings and especially your glutes. So sometimes it feels good when we're trying to stretch a muscle group to fire them up just a little bit, right? Because your brain can then feel them. You might also feel this into your quadriceps, but I really want you to squeeze your bum, sort of over exaggerate that squeeze of the bum. All right, and then exhale, lower all the way down. Pause for a second, because that was a pretty deep back bend. And then now draw your knees into your chest. So sometimes it feels good to take a little break of the neutral spine before you go into a counter pose, particularly with deep back bends like that. All right, and then from here, you might rock and roll up and down your spine. You could play with it. You might roll to one side. Go wherever you need to go. And then we'll meet on hands and knees for cat and cow because it's the best. And if you're only ever going to do one yoga pose ever for the rest of your life, may I humbly suggest cat and cow? Let's start to move here. Inhale, lift the tailbone, dip the belly, wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. Exhale, tuck your tailbone under. Really press the floor away from you. Inhale into cow. Exhale, round into cat. So a few more of these on your own time. on your own breath. And you might take a little wag of the tail from side to side here as you move, or barrel rolls through your chest or shoulders. Right? And if you always just do normal cat and cow, can you use a little bit of curiosity, explore, move a little bit more? If it feels peculiar, even better, right? So long as it's pain-free, just move however you need to move. All right. And then come back to center, shake out your hands, fix your clothes if you need to. And then come on back down. If we're going to do a little bit of single knee balancing, maybe you want some padding underneath your knee. So in which case, bring it underneath your left knee and then come to hands and knees. All right, keep your right knee bent, but lift your leg back up behind you. So your ankle is flexed. It's like you're trying to press the sole of the foot up into the sky. And then inhale, lift a little bit higher. You might dip through the low back, press the sole of the foot up to the sky, and then exhale round through the spine. So a little bit of spinal release, but a little bit of glute work, just a little bit. And then press the foot up to the sky, round through the spine. Couple more. And then bring your right knee down. If you're using padding, bring it underneath that right knee. And then switch sides. So keep the left knee bent, bring it back up behind you, and start to press the sole of the foot up to the sky. And then curl into a little ball. Inhale, press. Exhale, curl. So it's maybe less about the low back dumping than it is about kicking that foot up to the sky, right? Last one here. All right. And then come on back down, hands and knees, little wiggle or shake out. And then shift your hips on one side, swing your legs forward. Here we are. Okay, we fired up the glutes a little bit. Let's now mobilize them. So you have a couple different options. I'm going to show you both. The ball is probably the easiest one to get set up. If you have a ball, I'm going to bring it underneath one butt cheek. Doesn't matter which side you start with. And then you might sit your weight back into your hands and then just kind of lift up. Maybe you have that left foot or whatever foot, the same side down, maybe crossed. Maybe you want to go a little bit deeper, then cross the ankle over top. So this takes it into an extended position. And you could roll onto the side. If you don't have a ball and you have a dowel instead, whatever side you're going to do, take the dowel out on an angle that way, and then come on to the dowel. This broomstick is a little bit, or the circumference is a little bit small, the diameter, so it's a little bit harder to get into than, say, if you have a PVC tube. But even here, you could roll side to side, back and forth. I'm going to switch back to the ball because it works better for me with my luscious butt cheeks. I'm not sure why I said that. All right, keep working that first side, right? And if you feel somewhere that feels like it needs a little bit of extra attention, you can just pause. Right? So it takes a little bit of strength through the wrists, through the shoulders and arms. But just kind of rolling wherever you need to roll. You can do side to side, front and back. Last couple breaths on this first side, and it's a long time to spend on one side. If you're just using your Theragun, then easier. Or your percussive massage machine, use it on your butt. All right, and then come off your ball or your dowel, and then just sit for a couple moments. Maybe eyes closed. Notice whatever you notice. Maybe there's a difference between the sides. Maybe there isn't. And flick your eyelids open. When you're ready, let's switch sides. Again, I'm going to use the ball if using the dowel, then change the angle of the dowel, and then come on up again. Right, different side could feel way tighter, so maybe you want the extra support of the foot on the floor. Maybe you're ready to go a little bit deeper. Right, so go wherever you need to go. And again, if you find a really tight spot, just kind of rest. Rest is a strange word for this, but hang out on it for a little bit so that you can melt that tension away rather than kind of like rolling it like pastry or whatever. Although sometimes that, feels nice, that little kind of roly roll. You might need to walk yourself around in order to get into these spots. Right, and make sure that you're not working in pain because the body will try to protect itself. It won't release if it's feeling pain. Discomfort, wicked. That's where the change happens, right? On the mat, off the mat, when you're learning something new. It's good, but pain is not good. I just hit a point where it was a bit too deep. I could feel my muscles clench to protect them or to protect themselves from it. So I backed out of it. Right? And then you can find a little bit more space. Last few moments on this second side. All right, and then come on down, remove your props out to the side, and then just sit whatever way feels best for you. A couple moments just to let everything settle. All right, and then flick your eyelids open. Let's move into a 90-90 stretch because that's a really great one for the glutes. So one shin in front or right shin in front, left shin out to the side. Sometimes the hip can kind of cramp here. If you notice that maybe that's going to happen, then tuck your heel into your bum. That'll give you a little bit more space on that hip. And then I want you to rotate so that your torso is kind of running parallel to your thigh on that right side. You might just be staying here, right? This might be enough. Or maybe you start to hinge forward a little bit. Start on a long line, see how it feels. If it's all right on your low back, then maybe you start to round forward a little bit, a lot. Doesn't matter. Go wherever you need to go. If you have pillows or blocks, maybe you bring them underneath your head, right? If you need a little bit more height, you can start to do use them like Lego. But really now, try to release into the glutes, into the outer hip here. And we're going to be here for quite a while. So settle in. And particularly if your head is bowed forward, I want you to just notice where your mind is. Has it started to chase thoughts? If you're anything like me, it's these moments of stillness and when my face is kind of hidden from the world that my mind starts to race. So you might even flick your eyelids open and just find a single point of focus for your eyes on the floor in front of you. And try to keep your eyes there. A few more moments here. One more inhale. One sweet exhale. All right, and then slowly, using your hands, start to press yourself back up to seated. Swing your left leg forward, unwind your right leg, shake them out, or take a little windshield wiper, which sometimes feels like a nice massage for your butt too. And then we'll switch sides. So now bring your left shin in front, right shin out to the side, or whatever is the opposite side from you did the first time. Again, if your hip feels like it might cramp, then tuck the right heel in toward the bum a little bit more. And then rotate so that your torso is facing the same direction as your left thigh bone. And then maybe you sit tall and just stay here. Maybe you lean forward a little bit on that long line. I'm already starting to feel my glutes and my outer hip, right? Maybe you start to fold forward if it feels okay on your low back. Right, again, as high or as low as you need to go. It doesn't matter where I go. It doesn't matter if you're practicing with someone else, how far they go. Just go where you need to go. Again, working within a pain-free range of motion. Maybe you let the head bow. And if you don't have any props, maybe bending your elbows, bringing the palms together and resting your forehead on your thumbs can work. Of course, that relies on a certain range of mobility, but just go where you need to go. So again, we're going to be here for a little bit longer than we normally would. Why, you might be wondering, do you feel this possibly on the outer thigh? Well, it's getting into the muscles that attach to the IT band. Right, so then you start to feel like you're stretching the IT band, but that's kind of almost impossible because it's so thick. But it is getting into the muscles that attach to it. Glute max, gluteus maximus, wraps around onto the outer thigh as well. So that's part of what you're feeling, maybe. Also kind of normal to feel this into the groin on that leg as well. Okay, I'll stop talking. Last few breaths here. And then slowly using your hands, start to press yourself back up. Swing your right leg forward. Shake out the legs. So take that little windshield wiper. And let's do one more little pose before we come down to the floor. So butterfly pose. This is a fantastic place to sit up on something, almost so that your sit bones are almost falling off the front edge. It helps tilt the pelvis so that you can have a long spine, so you don't have to kind of force or grip to stay here, particularly if by sitting here you feel like your spine is rounding. This is a great place if you have blocks or pillows to bring them underneath your thighs or knees for a little bit of support, right? Because if your knees are up way high, it might not feel super comfortable, but then you have that little bit of bracing. And then try not to hold on to the toes, right? We tend to pull up on them and that just creates a sickle in the foot. So maybe hold on to not your ankles, but just above the ankles at the shins, and then wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. Maybe you stay here. Maybe you start to come forward on a long line first. See how that feels on your low back. Again, if it feels all right, then maybe you start to round forward. So this is a little bit less about targeting the glutes, but you're still getting them. Right? It's maybe a little bit more on the adductors. Sort of depends on what you've been doing lately or what's been getting tight. You could take it into more of a rotation, walking the hands over to one side, and then you get into the low back too. It's kind of like a nice 2-for-1, or I don't know, 5-for-1. You're stretching a lot of different muscle groups here. Maybe walk over to the other side. You don't have to. Go where you need to go. And then slowly, again, use your hands. Press yourself back up. You can bring your hands underneath your thighs to draw the legs toward each other and shake them out. And then make your way down onto your back. You might do a Pilates style roll down, tucking the tailbone and coming down. And then once you're down, draw your knees into your chest and take a little rock from side to side. Let's set up for a little bit of a twist. So take your right arm out to the side. Maybe you shift your hips right a little bit to start with. And then as you exhale, lower your knees to the right. Even here, you might feel like you're getting an outer thigh stretch or outer hip stretch. Again, depends on what you've been up to lately. Make sure it's a place of ease though, so you're not hovering the feet off the floor. Let them come down. You can always bring a block or something or a pillow between your knees, or you could take a different variation entirely if you wish. You might look along your right arm or in the opposite direction of your knees. Last breath here. And then inhale, unwind, come back to center, reset your pelvis and your spine. And you might shift the hips left a little bit, left arm out to the side. Exhale, lower your knees to the right. Again, as gentle or as deep as you need. Maybe look along your left arm just to finish off the spiral in your neck. Last few moments here. And then slowly on your inhale, return to center. Reset your pelvis and your spine. And then make your way into your final resting pose. You could be flat on your back, legs bent or straight in Shavasana. You could rest on your side, or child's pose, or a seated meditation. And there is no rush to get there. But once you have found your pose of rest for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath, slow and sweet. Let go of any last muscle gripping or tension, particularly in your neck or your jaw. With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.